It's Monday. Hooray. Yeah. Oh, we'll just do it live. Vegas. Yep, she is. She has time traveled and physically traveled. It's fine. Works. Yeah, nothing like LARP. Hop right in. Yeah, I mean, I have like a really sarcastic LARP pitch that I posted, which, I understand why people probably didn't interact with it because it is a little snarky because I love this hobby, but this hobby is like any hobby and not without some llamas. Uh, and it's more of a general, but most LARPs. But and to be fair, it's not just LARPing or cons or cosplay or Lolita or whatever subgroup that you like. It seems like it just happens when enough people and different personalities come together and clash. So, mhm. Yep. Uh, do you want to start? Do we want to start with like what is LARP? Oh, my terrible pitch. Okay, yes. Do you love role playing at conventions or cosplay but wish it was more than just once a year? Do you like the outdoors and want to incorporate fitness with your role playing? Do you just miss running around and playing make believe with your friends? Then you might be looking for LARPing. Live action role playing, or LARPing, allows you to merge all three of these into a monthly ish game. This isn't your sire's stuffy salon vampire LARP. This is going outside in the daylight, touching grass, and realizing you're standing on the anthill experience. Leave the safety of your cabin at night to use the bathroom and not be sure if it's a wild animal or a monster making those noises in the woods. It's attacking monsters with plumbing equipment and birdseed packets for safety. It's making human connections in play and out of play. It's learned that LARPers are a diverse group of people from different backgrounds, but we're all still geeky, nerdy dorks who just want to share stories and tell you about our awesome characters. It's about combat, as diplomatic negotiations eventually break down and you're forced to yell lightning bolt as you toss birdseed packets at each other, not the face. Or you can show off your combat skills with foam-covered pipe, swords, and weapon shields as you run across the field to smite your foes. Then internally curse that you skipped cardio and promise yourself that you will start again next week, if you're not too sore after game. It's about showing off your crafting skills. It's about showing off your crafting skills, sewing skills, purchasing skills when you show up with amazing new clothes for your character to be fully kitted out, only to spend a weekend getting them covered in grass, dirt, sweat, makeup, and various other stains that are hard to get out. Then wondering if the material is dry clean only, or if you can just toss it in the laundry when you get home. It's learning the importance of good shoes and the power of, and the power of inserts and good socks. As you walk across the campsite and your digital tracker congratulates you on finally beating 10,000 steps, only for you to feel that for a week after, like you were hit by a truck, because you are not regularly that active anymore. If all this sounds familiar to or fun, then LARPing might be for you. If you don't already know a LARPer who has already tried to talk you into going, you can search online in your area or on social media for games near you. Every game is different, every group has its own culture, and most are super excited for the chance to meet new people and tell you all about our characters. Ask your local LARPer if they think LARP is right for you. You will be kitted out in the back seat on the way to a game in no time. That was my snarky, but mostly true. More true than I would like to admit, I think. So we haven't had too many anthill experience in a while. Knock on wood. Yep. It's mostly good fun. Yep. Yeah, specifically the LARPing that we mostly do is boffer LARPing. So that is foam weapons, birdseed packets, out in the woods. Hmm. Or these are commonly also run at conventions. Mhm. No, so that's a different way. Instead of doing combat like in a buffer LARP where you would actually do combat, they usually have another way of abstracting it. So, uh, like White Wolf, yeah, White Wolf games are a very popular starting salon LARP. That was actually my first LARP was a vampire salon LARP at Dragon Con. Uh, thank you, Dragon Con, where we did rock paper scissors for combat, and I Yeah, I was gonna say the other ones are the card draws. Yeah, or you run away if that's not what your character would do. Yeah. But yeah, so those are the main ones, and then there's also Nordic LARPing, which I haven't really had too much experience with. Um, Actually, I don't think I've had any experience with, but it's no, no. That's the more Nordic is kind of the catch-all for like European LARPing. So it's a lot more, in my head, it's a lot more cinematic and it's a lot more story driven, which I have done. You, mhm. Yeah, the ones I did Jackalope Productions, and then another one, another group put on, but they were you would sign up for it like almost a year to 6 months beforehand. Then you would submit like what kind of character you wanted to play. Then you'd get a response back with like, okay, here are your options. Based on what you submitted, or this is who you're going to play. And then from there, you can take it, use the online Discord or forums to try and like start to set up character ties before you get to the site. And then at the Jackalope ones, we had a safety um, class that everybody had to go to, so everybody was on the same page about how to be safe. Because number one, be safe. This is for fun. This is basically adult play pretend. So nobody wants to get hurt. Nobody wants to get in a stupid, I hit you. No, you didn't. Yes, it did. Fight. We're too old for that. We're mature adults. We don't do that anymore. Llama, 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 llama. Uh, so, yeah, no problem. And then, yeah, while you're checking that, I'll just ramble a little
You're
bit, I guess.
out. Well,
um,
hopefully. Okay. There. That hopefully fixed it.
okay.
Save the changes. There we go. I think. Yes. Uh, so part of that maybe have gone away, which is not great, but it's whatever. I'm a little sad if we lost part of that, but it's fine.
Uh, but yeah, like blockbuster LARPs are high production. They usually are a story. Some can be a weekend long. Some are usually like more like a night or a
Yeah.
day. Um,
Whoops.
Several
I
hours
remember.
long.
There we go.
You play your character, you interact, and then that's it. And then usually, I pre-pandemic, most of the LARPs I went to, even if it was a blockbuster or a salon or a boffer, we would have afters, which was generally just decompression. It was an excuse to get together, talk about what we all just did, and like fun character moments that others might have missed, and just kind of geek out. Usually at like a 24-hour restaurant, like a IHOP or a Waffle House or whatever we could find that would accommodate however many people. So it's
Yeah.
so that was those were always fun. We haven't really gotten back to those post pandemic, which makes me sad just for the logistics of everything. But
Yeah, but it's
I get it.
yeah, we're being safe. We're trying to be anyway. And so some of us, are doing smaller kind of get-togethers. I know that the two LARPs that we are both in, they have a very active Discord, so we'll go on the Discord chat after game, and that's kind of a place to decompress and to like
Geek
say
out and
geek
post
out,
quotes,
post quotes, post pictures.
post
Someone
like awesome interactions that people had that, wasn't necessarily something everybody saw. So,
somebody actually got a pretty good picture of my current after the end character. I'm very happy about that.
ooh,
Um,
are pictures up?
there are some pictures. Indy
We
has
literally
posted.
just had that game, hence
Yes,
the.
yesterday and Saturday and yesterday and Friday.
Whew.
That all encompasses the weekend. It's okay. My brain is still rebooting from this weekend's LARP. It was a lot of fun. Um,
Yeah,
but it takes
yeah.
it takes a lot of brain power because you are pretending to be a whole ass other person. Um,
You gotta act, and
you can
not all of
act.
us know how to be actors. I am notoriously not what I would say particularly good at it.
Well,
Um, but
I tell people that ask that to me, if they're like, what is LARPing? I'm like, well, picture like improv theater meets a war game.
yeah, because like, and I love LARPing because it attracts like all different types of people with like, so it's for me, it's easy to tell the people who are like maybe in drama in
Mm-hmm.
high school, or the ones who maybe were in music, and the ones that were like former cosplayers who have transferred over. Like, it's very fun for me to pick the groups and see which are which, because
Yeah.
that's also kind of like I can talk a little bit about how I got started and you got started.
Um, I
Like a
mean,
brief,
we've
because I
told these stories before, but just as a kind of a brief thing,
like
yeah, we could
how
go into it.
introduction to LARP. Yeah,
Yeah.
because this was something I knew about because I loved Vampire the Masquerade, but I had not played Vampire the Masquerade. My mother actually bought the book and was the one who was like, "We should get a game together," and then we never manifested a game. So, um, fast forward to my first Dragon Con, and my boyfriend, a former theater kid, uh, and he's like, "Oh, they're doing vampire LARPing, and you've never done LARPing. We should do this." I'm like, "Okay, sure, let's do it." So we go and we sign up, and it's lots of fun. And I do not understand the rules because I basically got I didn't get a good crash course. I got this is LARPing, just act out everything, you're fine. And then I
Which
immediately,
is
like,
sort of correct.
sort of correct, but an hour in, I got into a combat situation and I didn't know what to do. So the guy's like, "All right, well, I'm going to stab you with this staff." So I'm going to come around and swing as he's moving his arms. I'm just like, duck, run, and like hide at the bottom of the Hilton? No, Hyatt. We were at the Hyatt then. It was just a three hotel thing. At the bottom of the Hyatt, and like just stop playing. I think I'm still playing the game. I am hiding now. That is part of the game, right? But I literally don't come out of hiding for like almost an hour and a half, because that's and then like one of the characters like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I went ahead and intercepted that, so you're fine, and you can come back to like the main room if you want to now." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Is that what we're doing?
Is that how that works? All right. So it was kind of weird, but it was also a con game, so they're a little,
Con games are in and of
yeah.
themselves a little wonky. Um,
Like later, I did get the vampire salon LARP where you go to somebody's house and you're all his characters, and you know did that whole thing, or rent out a rec center and for a few hours and do it there. And those were like my LARP experiences before the Boffer LARP,
yeah.
which at college we had a group that did Vampire LARP, but they also like some of those people also did Boffer LARP in the woods. I'm like, well, that sounds fun. I like going in the woods. I like the idea of hitting people with foam weapons. That sounds baller. but I don't know if I want to spend a weekend with you strange people that I don't really know. So I literally like hung out with it was called Sword. It was students who occasionally roll dice was the name of the group
Aw.
at KSU. Shout out! I'm not sure if you still exist, but uh, and literally they would get together like just about after every day. I think there were, I think Wednesday was the big day that they would definitely have get-togethers after classes, so it was usually around 7 or 8. But I would hang out with them just to try and get to know them better and be like until I felt the comfort level. I'm like, "Okay." And they were very patient and kind, you know. Oh, what type of character you want to make? We'll help you make your character. We'll help you find a costume. We'll lend you some weapons. And eventually got to that comfort level where I did go and it was at Red Top Mountain, so that wasn't too far away from the house. That was like a 45-minute drive as opposed to some of the others, which were an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Mhm.
And I had a great time. I came back. so, and I never stopped.
Which is opposed to my experience. So I actually, I was not super aware of the gaming community. I was pretty sheltered growing up, and that's, you know, nothing saying against my parents. Most games I knew about were like card games.
hmm
Um, so I get to college, and my roommate, my freshman year, actually got into a D&D group. And what was funny is that she knew I liked to draw. Like, I was super into drawing at that point. So I actually helped her draw out what her character looked like. And then the other players liked it so much that a couple of the others asked me to help them draw their characters. So, like, I drew one. Hers was a bard. We were all music students, so I'm like, of course she was a bard. And and then like one of them was a dwarf, but he was clean shaven. It was funny. Um, but anyway, so I didn't really understand like I drew their characters the way they described them, but I only was only kind of tangentially aware that it was like connected to D&D, and I was like, oh, that's neat.
hmm
It's a fantasy game that's interesting, but I was like, I don't really have time to do like a weekly gaming thing. I have a lot of homework because I'm in college. uh, but one of the guys that was playing was like, hey, I think you would really like LARPing. And I was like, okay, what's that? He was like, actually, specifically, he didn't say LARPing. He said, I think you would like Solar. Which Solar is
oh,
a little bit of an infamous one in our community, but
I did skip my one solar experience, but yes.
but it's he's explaining like everything that's going on. He's telling me stories about him and his character and like him doing monstering, and I was like, okay. And he was like, we will you come in, you can monster for a game, see if you like an NPC. And I was like, I don't know, because it's in the middle of the woods. I am very much an indoor cat. Um, and I
Bunch of people
wasn't
you don't know.
bunch of people I don't know. I know like one person, and I was just like, so I kept hemming and hawing, and then like 2 weeks later, I meet a lovely person named Christine, and I forget why I was at her dorm room because she was dorming on main campus, and I was dorming on the music campus because we had two separate campuses for like the fine arts and then the main campus.
hmm
And but I went to, I think my roommate was giving her roommate something, but I came along, and she was also there, and we met. It's a very confluence of events, and she looked at me and was like, "Do you want to play a princess?" I was like, "Go on." And she was
I'm
like,
interested.
I'm interested. She's like, here's the website. She pulled up the Forester Doors website. I can help you make a character. Look, here it is. Here's all the stuff you can do. And like, she literally ripped her curtain down and was like, I'll make you a skirt and you can borrow my corset. And then like a weekend later, I was going to a LARP. It was me and my one of my floor mates, um, and her boyfriend. No, that is not correct. I'm getting my timeline messed up. But it wasn't just me. I was going with like a group of people. Like
Yeah.
there was a couple of us, which is good because you know Christine. I love her to death, but she didn't warn me that it was a war day. So war days in LARPs are generally like the grand finale of like a thing, and so it was like ah, there's a really high possibility that my princess, who doesn't really carry a weapon, I mean, she had a short sword, that's about it, might die because it's supposed to be super, like, um, super dangerous at war days. She
Like,
survived. But, yeah, so that was my introduction to LARPing. I was just kind of thrown into the deep end. Um, what I think is hilarious, and this is all hindsight, is the man who would eventually become my husband was also at that war day, but and we were on the same. So they did a like a split thing where like half of the PCs were doing one part of the war day and the other half were monstering for it. Which monstering means that you put on like monster makeup and you are the bad guys for the PCs. You're rar.
yeah.
So then they would they switched.
Switched.
Yeah, they switched halfway during the day, and the rest of us got to be the monsters for a while, and the others got to play their PCs. Now, I didn't realize at the time because I had no idea who he was. He was in the same group that I was, but because he was at the front of the line doing the fighty thing, and I was at the back of the line going, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," we didn't actually meet that first game. So it was a kind of funny coincidence. Um, but
Yeah.
but yeah, after that, I was actually Ray's husband asked me to come be an NPC for a parlor LARP that they did. I got to play a scary, scary True Fae. Um, and then after that, the man who would eventually become my husband asked me to play in a game with them that was a tabletop.
Exalted. Yeah.
Yes, the Exalted game, which lasted for like 7 years.
It's a really good game, guys.
Really good game. But it's, it's very interesting how, I mean, personally for me, LARP has very much affected the way that my life has gone because I met my husband. Like almost a good majority of my friends are in the LARP circle. Um, and for me, it's a very safe, like, place and safe people that I can be around and interact with. And I don't know if that's, forged in like all of the character relations we have because your characters, unless you're playing an absolute asshole, are pretty much facets of yourself.
Mhm. Or
So go ahead.
even if you're an asshole, it can be your asshole part of you.
Right.
But and that also kind of brings into the importance of getting to know the player outside of the character, such as with after events, because there were plenty of characters that my character did not like, but
But
it
they're
was good to
lovely.
actually know the players and
They're
be like,
lovely
oh,
people out of
okay,
play.
yeah, you just play an asshole. I played an asshole. Like
We've
it
been
was actually kind of fun until it wasn't. So,
until it wasn't, yeah. Um
but
so
yeah,
what what are some of the like questions? Because we haven't even gotten to like the questions that you
I don't
or
really get many actually. So, it was just kind of a how to loop somebody in regarding blockbuster Nordic games.
Mhm.
Um, 'Cause, I mean, it touched a little on that. Like I said,
Well, so
I
here's the
know more about
thing.
blockbuster than Nordic.
Blockbuster
Uh,
LARPs are interesting because there is generally a very heavy an intense role play element to them, so you have to kind of be on board for that. And B, they can be very expensive because they are blockbuster, because they have the high production value. You have to be willing you kind of have to be willing to go 110% if you're going for a blockbuster LARP.
yeah, like I
And
think
for
they start at 75 for the
yeah.
lower end ones, but easily go up to like thousands. There was one that one of our friends went to. It was literally in a castle in England, and it was like takes place in like 15th century Italy.
Mhm.
Uh, oh my God, it was breathtaking. Like, because they had to rent it out. It was a weekend long, but they also had like the food was all catered, and usually with these things, if there's food, it's catered, and that's included in the cost.
Yes.
And
So you have to be
breathtaking.
yeah. You have to be willing to input that much time and energy. And for some people it's just it might be a once in a lifetime thing. For some people they just may not want to do that. And that's perfectly fine. There are plenty of parlor LARPs that you could go to that maybe are not the same production value, but you'll get just as much out of them if you have good, people to bounce off of.
And
LARPing is all about your character interaction.
yeah, it's and finding your fun. Like I have a friend who lives further up north, and where he is, there's not any boffer games. He really likes the fighting, the combat aspect of it. But what they do have is they have Amp Guard, which is more focused on the fighting and a little more lighter on the role play. The role play is kind of secondary. You have a character, you have stories, but the games that me and Linda play, it's more story and character driven.
Yes.
Um, and then there's inevitably combat situations that come after out of it. Whereas Amp Guard is a lot more combat games and stuff, which is also fun.
Yeah.
And you get to meet a lot of people. And it's not always just combat. There's like a whole like subgroup that also does like um, there was someone who did crafting, painting, costuming. It's kind of almost reminded me of SCA when
Yeah, which is
one
another
of my
thing.
friends also got really into, which predates
Yeah.
I feel like it predates LARPing, or at least in my perspective, it does. Though I did see that LARPing was apparently started to be a thing in the late '70s, which I think is about the same time about SCA.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, of the
s-
two, my parents knew what SCA was.
yeah, yeah, and honestly, SCA, I was exposed because we had the salon LARPing, and then Deborah got into SCA, and then from SCA we learned about Solar. So we tried Solar, and by try like we went out for a day. They were doing a 3-day event, and we just monstered. I think we maybe monstered like 3 or 4 hours,
Mhm.
and did not have really. Personally, I did not have a great time. I was a 3 foot tall frog that needed to be killed. The site was huge, and nobody would kill me until eventually, because
Aw.
I was an under level. They wouldn't get much from killing me. I
You were
wasn't
too
really a
cute.
threat. Yeah, I don't know. Finally, somebody who was like level 30 took pity on me, and like I had 10 hit points, and they hit me for like 98. It was just like, "Bleh! Okay, I'm dead. I'm super dead.
I'm so dead.
I'm so dead." I was like, it seemed okay. Like people seemed like they were having fun, but I didn't get to interact because I literally only got to play a monster. Which when we
Yeah.
talk about monstering, you you will play a monster. You'll play whatever they need you to play. You're an NPC. So they will sometimes give you a talkie, like a character. It's like, oh, you're a shopkeeper, or you're a traveler, or you're somebody. You have a name, you have motivation, you have a thing that you're going to do, and this is why you're coming into town. And sometimes they'll just give you a monster, like you're a wolf, you're a bat, you're whatever. You're a scary thing, and they'll let you know if you like are smart or not really smart. And That's that.
Yeah. Um. So speaking, this is a random aside. Speaking of crafting, um, back when I first started playing um, Forest of Doors, which is my very first LARP, my obviously my character was a princess, and I had thought that I would have enough energy and the ability to uh, make a embroidered like little square for every game of like what happened.
Ooh.
That fell apart after game 2. I was like, nope. But I found the first square I ever made of
Oh.
just the realm of castles.
Oh, that's awesome. Holy crap.
So I have a pillow of my realm of castles embroidered. I filled in some of the unembroidered part with fabric markers. Um, but I did find that, so I was like, oh yay, that's good memories for me. But yeah, um, I tried really hard, but I was like, I can't do this for every game. That's too much.
Yeah. I will say I definitely recommend if you're interested in LARPing and you found a game because the easiest thing to do, well, not the easiest, um, how I would recommend to get if you're interested in LARPing is to literally look up like LARPing groups in your state, and you might be lucky, you might be in a state that has lots of different LARPs. We have lots of LARPs in Georgia.
So many.
Um,
In Tennessee
uh,
too.
yeah,
Georgia,
Tennessee,
Tennessee.
California has a ton. Texas, I think, is pretty well done. But like, there's a bunch of different places that have different LARPs, and most of them have websites that you can go to and kind of look over the rules to get a feel for it. And also, usually there's a forum or a Discord or Facebook or whatever, and you can kind of reach out, and most people are more than happy to talk to you about the game, and you can start to see if you feel comfortable with it because some games might mesh with you better than others, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Some people like more sci-fi games. Some people want more fantasy games. Some people want more horror. So there's a variety out there. And if you find one that you're really interested in, but you're nervous because you're the only one, personally, I would recommend seeing if you can talk a friend into going with you.
Yeah. Take a buddy with you.
Yeah, because then you have somebody that you both know each other. You can both watch out for each other, and also like hopefully you'll both have a great time together, and can like bring other people if you want. But that way you feel more safe and you can start to like interact more and get to know these different people and the different games.
Yeah, and it's nice to have, you don't necessarily need it, especially if you know people in the game. But if it's a
Yeah.
brand new like place you know, brand new folks that you don't necessarily know, having someone there that you automatically have a role play buddy, and
Hmm.
you it's a good way to, you know, have feel safer. Not to say you're going to be in danger, but I'm
Stranger danger is a
stranger
thing,
danger,
so
and I this is very much playing off of, you know, what what I feel about certain things. I get very nervous around new folks. Um and I do a real good job of hiding it now, but back strangely enough, playing characters who had to be diplomatic and do diplomacy and such helped me with some of that like social anxiety, but I still have it. So if it's, you know, if it's a lot of new people that I don't know, you know, it, part of me still wants to do this, and I think a lot of nerd culture, if you will, can have that social anxiety. So it's just nice to have somebody there with you.
and if you're the type who goes to conventions, um, I know locally here in Atlanta, we've got several games that people like have mini versions of at local conventions, like MomoCon. Used to be DragonCon, but I'm sure DragonCon also still hosts others. Like DragonCon's the first time I heard of Xanadu, which I never did get to check out, which it was the steampunk one, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds so cool!" But I already had like 3 games at that point, and I was like, "I cannot fit in another game." So, but
Yeah.
it's a good way to, again, because they'll usually have and they'll go over it with you at the convention, and it's at the convention, so then it's only like a 3-hour commitment as opposed to a a whole day or a whole weekend. It kind of gets your feet wet.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are two very staunch dyed in the wool LARPers. We do recommend, obviously. It's a good way to kind of interact with folks. It's a good way to kind of show off your costume skills, whether that be stuff that you have found to purchase online or stuff you've made yourself. No one's gonna judge you for it. If your costume happens to be, semi homemade, um, that's
Actually, most people are really excited to see how other people interpret fashion and within the setting. Like
right.
that's always something that's really kind of like, oh, that's so cool. I wouldn't have thought of that. Or like, wow, that looks amazing. Where did you get it? And if you're like, I made it, you're like, holy crap, you made that? Or it's like, oh, I found it at this site. I'm like, oh, I didn't know about them. I'm gonna add Holy Clothing or whoever it is to my list.
Yeah.
So, um, and I definitely feel that it's gotten a bit more mainstream. I mean, we've had a couple movies that mention LARP and several TV shows. So like, I feel like people know more about it, and maybe it just still has that weird like it's pretend in the woods thing. Also, there's nothing wrong with if you have a particular like physical limitation to take keeping that in account when you go and you like I'm interested in this game, but I need a walking aid or I need handicap accessible. Like talk to them. Like see like they'll people other players and staff will be happy to let you know like what is there at that site and if that is something that can be provided or if that's something that is partially assisted with or if unfortunately it's not because
Yeah, we're
that's important.
we're very lucky in that the LARPs that we are part of are very much combat optional. There's definitely, if you just want to be a talkie character, you can just be a talkie character. If you want to be a I'm gonna go beat up everything, you can be a go beat up everything character. They're very accommodating to folks who may either have physical or emotional limitations when it comes to that sort of interaction. Um,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
oh, so um, always, if you're not sure, check in with the plot staff or the staff members. We call them plot staff. Um, just see what the community is like when it
Mhm.
comes to that. Our
Also,
community is very good.
we're we're very happy that we've found a really good community, and this community has worked very hard to address broken stairs and address situations and get them resolved. Or yeah, so um, but also like from an emotional standpoint, if you get really emotionally invested in a scene, or if it's something that triggers you, or you need to step away from, let your fellow players know like that's fine. You can just be like real quick like I I'm sorry. I need to step away, okay? I'm and most people are fine. A lot of places like we at the parks that we're at, there's almost always like a room or two that you can find or even your own cabin that you can go back to if you need alone time just to decompress and kind of get that out of your system.
Hmm.
And there's nothing wrong if say you've like I can't stay. I need to go. Like usually
Yeah.
then you just let staff know. You'll be fine.
I had it's again we've talked about this before. It's called character bleed when
Mhm.
it's you know you are trying to be this character, but it's also you. So if it's a very emotional thing, it'll kind of bleed into your own um, consciousness and start affecting you. I had one of these recently. I was not expecting it to be so intense of a character bleed, but I literally was like, I am feeling really terrible. I'm going to go into the kitchen and bake dessert. And they let me go into the kitchen and bake dessert, and I felt better. So I just apparently needed sugar therapy or baking therapy. Um, but it's, you never really know what's going to kind of get into your head, if you will, with certain scenes. Um, so a good LARPing community will be accommodating for that. Um, our community has a check-in system. If it's a super intense scene, you're going at it, you're yelling or whatever, you can do this, and then the other player can go, I'm okay, I'm not really
Not
okay,
okay.
I'm not good, and then you can switch
Gotta X
accordingly,
out.
or
Yeah.
I'm leaving, I'm out. So just if you are, concerned about that, just like I said, check in with them, see if they have that kind of system in place. A lot of games now have, that kind of I'm not good with this anymore. It's for tabletops. It's called the X card. For some of them, it's called the X card, where you're just like, if you're in the middle of something, you can just literally, it has a card with an X on it. You're like, nope, can't deal with this right now, and then
Yep.
it's up to the other players and the GM to pivot, because player mental health should be, the top priority
Yeah.
instead of,
We
whatever story you're telling.
we're doing this all to have a good time and to share experiences together. Nobody wants you to be actually hurt physically, mentally, emotionally. Nobody wants that. So you can always do that. There's also I kind of like dovetail into what we do abstract in our boffer games, which is physical affection can be abstracted because adults and we're role playing, and sometimes adult situations between consenting characters come up. So there are different ways that that is abstracted out, and some LARPs have like a Ars Armandi system where you can basically like do hand touching to kind of signify that there's some sexual going on over there. Some people like will go off into a room and just like mess each other's hair up for a bit, like for 5 minutes and come back out. It's just that again is an importance of using a checking system to make sure that you're good with it, make sure all parties are good with this with their character, and then how you want to, if that is still something you want to go into, how do you want to abstract it? You want to do ours? You just want to be like, my character initiates sex and sex happens and that's it. And that's it. And there's just a fade to black, nothing else. Perfectly fine. So again, communication is very important and it can open a lot of opportunities. Uh, the After the end, I played um, a sex worker. I was in a saloon. I loved it. The character was super fun. I got to be super flirty, and there were lots of times where sometimes people wanted to opt into that role play option, and sometimes people were just like, "No," and I'm like, "Cool." Like that's all you ever had to say. It's like I had one character that was just like he was like out of play, like, I am married. I am not comfortable with this at all. I'm like, cool, sorry, step away, nothing else. And like, our characters didn't really become friends. But we were friendly, I should say, but not. And it was just not best buds, but definitely you're still a member of town. And it was like we could talk and we still had like character growth together, which was awesome. And then like later on my character did have like an actual love interest, and the whole like your job makes me feel very uncomfortable, and I'm like, well, it just turned into a lot of fun
Moulin
opportunities.
Rouge, anyone?
Oh, it was so much fun. I loved it. So
uh,
good. But it's like, and with all of that though, there was still a lot of check-ins and like, is this okay? Do you want to go this avenue, or do we need to like into a different like veer off and like not worry about this aspect of the RP is like, no, I'm here for it, or like,
I, f-
okay, cool.
I feel like that should be the byline. LARPing, communication is key.
Communication is key, like anything. So,
So
um,
in conclusion, we're gonna we're gonna probably wrap up here. Um, we really enjoy the hobby. It can be expensive. It can be, emotionally taxing, but it's
mhm,
really fun. It's a good outlet for a lot of creative energy, and for a lot of, you know, interactions with your friends, and just a lot of giggling. Like a lot of it can be like super emotional and deep and whatever, but there's also the 2 a.m. It's silly o'clock, and we're half in and a half out of play, and we're just laughing at things that have happened
or
that are
or the
silly.
general overabundance abuse of puns,
Hmm.
um, or just random asides. It's fun. I personally, I obviously I recommend it. I've looped so many of my friends into this quote yet another expensive hobby since I used to loop them into anime. So we
Yeah.
progressed from anime and conventions to LARPing. So,
Oh.
but yeah, it's a great way to meet new friends. Like I met Linda at her first game. Uh,
Yeah, she came up to me and was like, "Hey, I know Realm of Castles people are really against magic, but you're gonna die if I don't help you with this. So,
please let me put some magic on you so
please
you
let
don't
me help
die.
you." Oh, Ember was like, "Hobby or lifestyle? It depends." You
You can do both, but
do both.
as the majority of the mess behind me is literally from LARPing,
I don't
uh,
even want to. I can see it in my camera, but I don't even want to look at it. But yeah.
yeah, like that hat, the floofies down here are part of like a headdress I made. Um, I bought fabric, which is over there, to make a dress for another character. Like,
Yeah,
it
that's a
was an
thing.
excuse to like learn new art hobbies.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I learned how to sew for costuming. For LARPing.
I did my very first needlepoint, the first cross stitch.
Yeah, like
I
I said,
tried to
like
make
when I showed
pumpkin
this off,
weapons.
this was for a LARP. This that I made. This is like one of the first, literally one of the first things I made for a LARP was that
I
little
love my
pillow.
mushroom hat. I'm very proud of it. I'm gonna make
Yeah.
another version of it. It's it makes me so happy, guys.
Oh, you're so
Also,
adorable.
also it was very bright and sunny and rainy, and it was perfect because I waterproofed it. But
You had your mushroom
uh,
hat. I had my parasol.
yeah,
It's all good.
you can. It's definitely a hobby, but can easily become a lifestyle. Like it can easily take over. Like I've got two games. One is 8 games a year, one is 4 games a year, and then occasionally within that we will maybe do a blockbuster or two, or just like check out some other local games or a salon game or two. So I feel like for us it's definitely more of a lifestyle.
Yeah, I've had to cap, like I can do other like online role play or tabletops, but two LARPs, like
Yeah.
two ongoing LARPs is my cap.
I,
Um,
I
but singular ones I could probably squeeze in every now and
yeah, I'm actually have cut am cutting back on a lot of my LARPing. So
then.
but I do recommend you can make some really great friends. You can learn about other games and other like not just like other LARP games, like role playing games, tabletop games, card games, video games. There's like a whole subgroup of us that are obsessed with Dragon Age, guys. So it's delightful. It's a nice way to meet other nerdy, geeky, dorky type of people. Um, there's like another group of us that will exchange like anime talk. So
Yeah, it's uh
a lot of
I
them are.
approve.
Oh, go ahead.
I said I approve. I approve.
Yeah, I was about to say like a bunch like are also like super into like Mandalorian, which is not my bag, but it's totally fine. So, because there's something for everybody. Like as soon as you get to talk to the people, you just learn how much more you guys have in common, and you make all these new friends all across the country. It's super
Yes.
fun.
Some of the people, so because one of our games, ATE, is only 4 times a year, we have folks that fly in. We have someone who lives in California who comes to our game in Tennessee.
We have somebody who lives in Japan and flies over.
Yeah.
I did not know that until literally
Yeah, sorry,
like
Japan. Not he had to stop in
yeah.
California.
I mean, we have somebody else who's like in Seattle. We've got a bunch of people like all across.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
uh, anyway, so international friends. This just reminds me of when we were doing our like years ago. We were doing our 24-hour extra life thing when we were doing that the game that the one shot I wrote, and somebody from Germany was just listening in because they were like, "Hey, you're live," and it's like, you know, it wasn't 3 a.m. for them; it was 3 a.m. for us. But
Yeah.
that was really cool. I always find that the interconnectivity super cool.
So you both started LARPing in college. You both meet lifelong friends in college. Lifelong friends through LARPing?
Lifelong friends through LARPing. I like it.
I can see that. I can see that.
All right. So hold on. Let me get my notes here. There we go. Remember, folks, as we're wrapping up now, you can always come watch us record live at twitch.tv/geekgrills on most Monday evenings. We're going to, have our production meeting next week. So none next week, but soon more. I've gone off script completely. But we generally record at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and we'll let you know what we're doing.
But, oh, yeah.
Turn.
Sorry, I forgot there's like the whole I thought we were doing loosey-goosey and not
Here, you know what? It's fine. I'll do it. In addition to the subs and bits we get on Twitch, we're supported by our amazing patrons, greatest girlfriends on the internet. You can become a patron at patreon.com/grills. If you have Amazon Prime, you can sub to us for free every month on Twitch. And another way to show your support is by leaving us a review. You can do so on any of your podcast catchers. You can check out what topics we're going to do in the next month on our schedule below on our Twitch page when we get it figured out at our production meeting. And if you're a patron, you can always suggest a topic for us. We'll do it, and we would love to hear your ideas. So, where can we find you on the interwebs? Ray?
Find me, in theory, on Instagram, though I haven't been on at all this year. Dappeldame.
You've been busy. You're also going to move soon.
This is why I've cut it back on like all the things.
You can yes. You can find
where can
Ember.
find you?
Oh, well, I was going to tell Ember first. You can find Ember at 9of12 at 9of12.com. It's got all her stuff on there. You can find me on Instagram under the name madcap_misc. That's MISC. And you can check out my website at madcapm.com. I keep making noise that I'm going to change it around. I might actually get around to doing that soon. So, thanks for listening to this slightly off-script version of our podcast this week, everyone. Good game!
You have learned a little bit more about LARPing if you had questions. And we'll be happy to answer if you still have questions. Good game!
GG!
GG!